Tejo pressed his face against the cold metal bars of his prison cell. The alien space station hummed around him like a giant metal beast. Through the small window, he could see the dark, empty space filled with distant stars. He had been here for 3 months now. 3 months since the aliens destroyed his home on Titan III. The prison was not like the jails on Earth. This place was built for fun. The aliens who ran it liked to watch humans suffer. They called it entertainment. Tejo was thin now. The aliens gave prisoners just enough food to stay alive. His clothes were torn and dirty. His black hair hung over his eyes. But his mind was still sharp. Before the war, he had been a scientist. He studied dangerous animals on different planets. That knowledge might be the only thing keeping him alive. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. Tejo moved away from the bars. 3 tall aliens walked toward his cell. Their skin was green and covered in scales like a snake. Their eyes were yellow and cold. These were the Vorthak, the race that had taken over his world. The largest alien stopped in front of Tejo's cell. This was Commander Vextar. His uniform was black with red marks that showed his rank. A long scar ran down his face from his left eye to his jaw. "Human," Vextar said in his deep voice. His words came out slow and strange. "Today is your lucky day." Tejo said nothing. He had learned not to talk back to the aliens. It only made things worse. "General Koth arrives today," Vextar continued. "He comes to see our prison. We must give him a good show." The other aliens laughed. Their laughter sounded like rocks grinding together. "What kind of show?" Tejo asked quietly. Vextar's yellow eyes grew bright with excitement. "The dragon pit, human. You will meet our pets." Tejo felt his blood turn cold. Every prisoner knew about the dragon pit. It was in the center of the station. The aliens had built it to hold 2 massive creatures they had captured from a dead planet. "No one who went into the pit ever came out alive, please," Tejo said. "I have done nothing wrong." "Wrong?" Vextar laughed. "You are human. That is wrong enough." The cell door opened with a loud clank. 2 guards grabbed Tejo by his arms. They were strong. Much stronger than any human. Tejo did not fight. There was no point. They dragged him through the metal hallways of the station. Other prisoners watched from their cells. Some were humans like him. Others were aliens from different worlds. All of them had the same look in their eyes. Fear and sadness. The hallway opened into a huge round room. This was the arena. Hundreds of aliens sat in seats that went up like stairs around a deep pit in the center. The pit was 50 feet wide and 30 feet deep. The walls were smooth metal. There was no way to climb out. At the top of the arena sat General Koth. He was bigger than the other aliens. His scales were darker, almost black. Gold jewelry covered his neck and arms. His eyes looked down at Tejo like he was looking at a bug. "So this is our entertainment?" General Koth asked. His voice was even deeper than Vextar's. "Yes, General," Vextar said. "Watch how quickly the dragons tear him apart." The aliens in the seats began to cheer and shout. Some threw pieces of food at Tejo. Others made loud noises that sounded like animal calls. A metal platform lowered from the ceiling. The guards pushed Tejo onto it. The platform was small, just big enough for 1 person. Chains held it up over the center of the pit. "Any last words, human?" Vextar called out. Tejo looked down into the dark pit. He could not see the bottom clearly, but he could hear something moving down there. Heavy breathing. The sound of claws on metal. Something big. Maybe 2 something big. "I studied dragons once," Tejo said quietly. The aliens laughed even louder. "These are not the fairy tale dragons from your human stories," Vextar said. "These are real. These are killers." The platform began to lower. Tejo's heart beat fast in his chest. As he went down, the sounds from above became quieter. The sounds from below became louder. Halfway down, he saw them. 2 massive shapes moved in the shadows. Each one was as big as a house. Their skin looked like black stone. Long tails dragged across the floor. Wings were folded against their backs. Red eyes glowed in the darkness, but something was wrong. Tejo had expected the dragons to be wild and angry. Instead, they moved slowly. Their heads hung low. These were not the proud beasts he had read about in old books. These looked tired, broken. The platform reached the bottom of the pit with a loud clang. The chains went up, leaving Tejo alone on the metal floor. Above him, the aliens shouted and cheered. They wanted blood. They wanted to see him die. The first dragon stepped into the light. It was huge. Its head was the size of a car. Teeth as long as Daeho's arm filled its mouth, but its red eyes were not full of anger. They were full of pain. The second dragon came from the other side. This one had scars across its face and body. Both dragons had metal collars around their necks. The collars had small lights that blinked red. "Come on," Vextar shouted from above. "Kill the human!" The dragons looked up at the aliens. Then they looked at Daeho. They moved closer, but they did not attack. They just stood there watching him. Daeho remembered something from his old studies, something about dragon behavior, something about how they chose their prey. But this was different. These dragons were not looking at him like food. They were looking at him like they were trying to remember something. The crowd above grew quiet. This was not what they expected. The dragons should have attacked by now. They should have torn the human apart in seconds. "What are they waiting for?" General Koth asked. Commander Vextar did not answer. He was watching the pit with confusion in his yellow eyes. Down in the pit, Daeho took a small step forward. The dragons did not move back. Instead, the larger one lowered its massive head. Its red eyes looked directly into Daeho's brown ones. For a moment, the prison disappeared. The shouting aliens disappeared. There was only a man and two ancient creatures trying to remember something that had been lost long ago, something that might save them all. The silence in the arena was thick like heavy air before a storm. Hundreds of alien eyes watched the pit below. They waited for blood. They waited for screams. But the only sound was the quiet breathing of two massive dragons and one small human. Daeho stood very still. His heart hammered in his chest, but he kept his breathing calm. The larger dragon was so close now that he could feel the heat from its body. Its red eyes studied his face like it was reading a book. "Why are they not attacking?" General Koth's voice boomed from above. "Commander Vextar, your beasts are broken." Vextar's scales turned a darker shade of green. This was not going as planned. "Give them time, General. They are just playing with their food." But Daeho could see the truth. These dragons were not playing. They were remembering. The second dragon, the one with scars, moved around to Daeho's left side. Now he was surrounded. The crowd above began to murmur with excitement. Surely this was it. The human would die now. Instead, the scarred dragon did something strange. It lowered its great head and made a soft sound. Not a roar or a growl. It was almost like a question. Daeho closed his eyes and let his mind go back. Back to his old life. Back to when he was Dr. Daeho Kim, one of Earth's best dragon researchers. Back to the dig site on Kepler 442b where everything changed. The cave was deep and dark. Hyejin held the light while Daeho brushed dust from the stone wall. The symbols were old. Older than any human writing they knew. "What do you think it says?" Hyejin asked. She was his partner in research and in life. "I think..." Daeho paused, studying the carved pictures. "I think these are not stories. I think they are memories." The wall showed humans and dragons together. Not fighting, working together. Flying together, the humans looked different from modern people. Taller, stronger, but they were definitely human. "Look at this." Daeho pointed to one carving. The human has his hand on the dragon's head. "They are both glowing with the same light." "That's impossible," Hyejin said. "Humans and dragons never work together. Dragons are just animals, are they?" Daeho touched the stone carving. What if we were wrong? What if dragons were never just animals at all? The memory faded. Daeho opened his eyes. The larger dragon was still watching him. Its red eyes were brighter now, like fire was growing inside them. "You remember too, don't you?" Daeho whispered. The dragon's eyes widened. It made that soft questioning sound again. Above them, the aliens grew restless. "This is boring," one shouted. "Make them fight." Commander Vextar pressed a button on his control device. Electric shocks ran through the metal collars around the dragons' necks. Both beasts roared in pain and anger, but they did not attack Daeho. Instead, they moved closer to him as if trying to protect him from the pain. "Impossible," General Koth said, standing up from his seat. "Dragons protect no one but themselves." Daeho looked at the metal collars, the blinking red lights. Now he understood. The collars were not just to control the dragons. They were blocking something. Something in the dragons' minds. He remembered more from the dig site. More carvings. More truth. "Hyejin, look at this section," Daeho had called out. "The dragons and humans are connected by lines of light. It goes from the human's mind to the dragon's mind." Neural connection? Heejin moved closer to see. But that would mean they could share thoughts. Share feelings, maybe even share abilities. Daeho, if this is true, if humans really could bond with dragons, then we were never alone in space. We had partners. We had family. The memory hit him like lightning. Family. These dragons were looking at him like he was family they had lost. Daeho took a step closer to the larger dragon. Its massive head was now just 3 feet from his face. He could see old scars on its scales, wounds that looked like they came from weapons. They hurt you, he said softly. They took you from your home. They made you forget. The dragon's eyes grew even brighter. A tear large as Daeho's hand rolled down its scaled cheek. This is ridiculous, Vextar shouted. He pressed the button harder. More electricity shot through the collars. Both dragons roared, but this time it was not pain. It was anger. The kind of anger that comes when someone hurts your family. The scarred dragon turned its head toward the aliens above. Its eyes blazed with red fire. For the first time since Daeho had entered the pit, the dragon looked like the killer the aliens wanted it to be, but its anger was not aimed at the human. Commander, one of the guards said nervously, maybe we should stop this. No, Vextar's voice cracked with rage. The human dies today. He pressed another button. The walls of the pit began to glow with electric energy. Soon the entire floor would be filled with lightning. The larger dragon saw the danger. It moved fast, faster than something so big should be able to move. Its massive wings swept down and covered Daeho like a shield. The electricity hit. The dragon roared as the power ran through its body. But it did not move away from Daeho. It took all the pain to keep him safe. Brother, Daeho shouted without thinking. The word came from somewhere deep inside him, somewhere he did not even know existed. The dragon's head snapped toward him. Its eyes were wide with surprise and something else, recognition. The scarred dragon moved to cover them both with its other wing. Now Daeho was protected by both creatures, wrapped in their wings like he was their child. The electricity stopped. Smoke rose from the dragon's scales. They were hurt, but they were alive, and they were still protecting him. Impossible, General Koth said again, but this time his voice was quiet, worried. In the darkness under the dragon's wings, Daeho felt something new, a warmth in his mind, a presence that was not his own. 2 presences, actually. The dragons were trying to talk to him, not with words but with thoughts, with feelings, with memories older than human civilization. And slowly, carefully, Daeho began to remember who he really was, who humans really were. The aliens above had made a terrible mistake. They thought they were watching entertainment. They were actually watching the awakening of something that had been sleeping for 1,000 years. Under the protective wings of the 2 dragons, Daeho felt his world change. The darkness around him was warm and safe, but inside his mind lights were turning on. Memories that were not his own began to flow like water. He saw space, not the cold, empty space he knew, but space filled with life. Ships that looked like living things flew between the stars, and riding on the backs of great dragons were humans. But these humans looked different. They were taller, stronger, and their eyes glowed with inner fire. We remember, a voice said in his mind. It was deep and old like mountains. We remember the time before the sleep. Daeho opened his eyes in the darkness under the wings. You can talk, he whispered. We always could talk. But the metal around our necks makes the words hard to find. You help us remember. Another voice joined the first. This one was sadder, full of pain. They took us from the home world when we were young. Made us fight, made us forget. But your smell, your mind, it is like the old times. What old times? Daeho asked. Images flooded his mind. He saw a beautiful planet with purple skies and crystal mountains. Dragons and humans lived there together. The humans were not pets or masters. They were partners, brothers and sisters of the heart. Your people and our people grew up together, the first dragon explained. Humans could think and plan. Dragons could fly and fight. Together we were strong. Together we explored the galaxy. But what happened? Why don't humans remember? The sadness in the second dragon's voice grew stronger. War came. Enemies who feared what we could do together. They broke the bond, scattered your people to different worlds, made them forget, made us forget. Above them, Daeho could hear the aliens shouting. The crowd was angry. This was not the show they wanted. The dragons are broken. Someone yelled. Get the human out, another voice called. But General Koth's voice cut through the noise. No, let them stay. I want to see what happens next. Commander Vextar pressed buttons on his control device. The electricity should have driven them mad by now. They should be tearing the human apart. Perhaps, General Koth said slowly. We do not understand what we are seeing. In the pit, Deho felt the dragon's wings move. They were lifting them up, letting light back in. But both dragons looked different now. Their red eyes burned brighter. The scales on their bodies seemed to shimmer with hidden energy. The metal collars hurt us, the first dragon said, but your presence makes us stronger. Strong enough to fight the pain. Deho looked at the collars around their necks. The red lights blinked faster now. What do the collars do exactly? They block the bond. They make us stupid, like animals instead of people. People? Yes, we are people just like you. We think. We feel. We love. We remember. The scarred dragon moved its great head closer to Deho. Touch us, it said. Touch us and help us remember more. Deho reached out with a shaking hand. His fingers touched the warm scales on the dragon's forehead. The moment his skin made contact, the world exploded with light. More memories rushed through his mind. But these were different. These felt like his own memories, just buried very deep. He saw himself as a child, but not on Earth. On a world with 2 suns and floating cities. A young dragon played with him in gardens that floated in the sky. They were friends. Best friends. He saw himself as a young man, bonded with a dragon named Rith. They flew between the stars together, exploring new worlds, helping other species solve their problems. He saw the day the enemy came. Ships as black as night filled the sky. The dragons and their human partners fought bravely, but there were too many enemies. The bond was broken with machines and drugs and pain. Rith, Deho whispered, looking into the larger dragon's eyes. Your name is Rith. The dragon's eyes filled with tears again. You remember? Oh, brother of my heart, you remember? Deho turned to the scarred dragon. More memories came. And you? You're Nex, yes. Nex's voice sang with joy. I am Nex. I had forgotten my own name, but you helped me remember. The moment Deho spoke their names, something amazing happened. The metal collars around both dragons' necks began to spark. The red lights flashed faster and faster. What's happening? Vextar shouted from above. The collars were overloading. The dragon's returning memories were too strong for the machines to block. The bond is fighting back, Rith explained. When we remember who we are, the machines cannot hold us. Deho felt power flowing through him. Not his own power, but power shared from his dragon brothers. His muscles felt stronger. His mind felt clearer. His eyes began to glow with the same inner fire he had seen in the ancient carvings. Above them, the aliens saw the change. Deho no longer looked like a weak human prisoner. He stood taller. His eyes blazed with golden light, and the dragons beside him no longer looked broken and sad. They looked magnificent. Impossible, General Koth said, but his voice showed fear now instead of anger. The collars around the dragons' necks began to smoke. Cracks appeared in the metal. Soon we will be free, Nex said, and when we are free we will show these aliens what happens when they hurt our family. No, Deho said firmly. When we are free we escape. We find the other humans. We rebuild what was lost. You are wise, brother, Rith said. This is why humans and dragons work so well together. You think of tomorrow, not just today. The first collar broke with a loud crack. Sparks flew everywhere as Nex shook the broken metal from his neck. The moment the collar was gone, his entire body seemed to grow brighter. His scales shimmered like stars. The crowd above screamed. Some aliens ran for the exits. Others pressed closer to see this impossible thing. The second collar broke. Rith roared, but it was not a roar of pain. It was a roar of freedom, of joy, of a family reunited after 1,000 years of separation. Now both dragons said together, Let us show you what the bond can really do. Deho felt their power flow into him completely. His human body filled with dragon strength. His human mind expanded with dragon wisdom. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the ancient partnership between humans and dragons was whole again. The aliens above had wanted a show. They were about to get one they would never forget. The broken metal collars lay on the pit floor like dead snakes. Rith and Nex stood tall beside Deho, their scales glowing with inner light. The human between them no longer looked weak or afraid. Power flowed through his body like lightning through his veins. Above them, panic spread through the alien crowd like fire. Some Vorthak soldiers ran toward the exits. Others pointed weapons at the pit. But General Koth remained in his seat, watching with yellow eyes full of fear and wonder. "Impossible," Commander Vextar whispered. The collars were built to never break. "How did they—" His words were cut off as Deho looked up at him. The human's eyes blazed with golden fire. When he spoke, his voice carried power that shook the walls. "You never understood what you captured," Deho said. "You thought you had two animals and a man. But you had a family." Rith spread his massive wings. They were no longer just black. Lines of gold light ran through them like rivers of fire. "We are free, brother," he said in Deho's mind. "What shall we do first?" "Show them," Deho replied out loud. "Show them what dragons really are." Nex reared up on his back legs. His scarred body began to change. The old wounds on his scales sealed up and disappeared. His torn wing membranes grew whole again. The pain that had lived in his eyes for years melted away like ice in the sun. "I remember now," Nex said with joy. "I remember how to be myself." The dragons were not just healing. They were growing stronger. The bond with Deho was feeding them energy they had lost during their years in chains. And Deho was changing too. His thin body filled out with muscle. His bent shoulders straightened. His dull hair began to shine. The bond was making him into what humans were meant to be when they worked with dragons. "Stop this," General Koth shouted. He pressed buttons on his command chair. "Flood the pit with poison gas." Vents opened in the pit walls. Green gas began to pour out. It was the kind of poison that killed most living things in seconds. The alien crowd cheered, thinking the show was finally over. But Rith and Nex just laughed. Their laughter sounded like thunder. "Poison cannot hurt us now," Rith explained to Deho. "Watch and learn, brother." Both dragons breathed in deeply. Instead of dying from the gas, they seemed to eat it. The green poison disappeared into their lungs and came out as clean air. "Dragons filter poison," Deho said, remembering more from the ancient memories. "That's why our ancestors could explore dangerous worlds." "Exactly. And now that we are bonded again, you can do it too," Deho breathed in. The poison gas tasted bad, but it did not hurt him. His dragon-enhanced body cleaned it and made it safe. More memories flooded back. Not just his own, but the memories of all humans who had ever bonded with dragons. He saw their abilities, their adventures, their love for each other. "We could phase between dimensions," he said with wonder. "Yes," Nex replied. "We could become like ghosts when we needed to hide, or solid as rock when we needed to fight. We could heal from any wound. The bond makes us stronger than the sum of our parts. We could share knowledge across space itself." Every human bonded with dragons knew what every other human knew. Every dragon could speak with every other dragon, no matter how far apart. General Koth heard these words and his scaled face went pale. "You're talking about an army," he said. "An army of creatures we cannot kill or contain." Deho smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Not an army, General, a family. And you heard our family." The dragons began to glow brighter. Their bodies started to become transparent. They were shifting between solid matter and energy, just as the ancient memories showed. "Shall we leave this place?" Rith asked. "Not yet," Deho said. "First we free the others." "Others?" Deho's enhanced senses could feel them now. Other humans in the prison. Some were in cells like his had been, but some were in worse places. Hidden rooms where the aliens did experiments. Torture chambers where they tried to break human spirits. "There are 43 other humans on this station," Deho said. "We're not leaving without them." The dragon's eyes blazed with anger. "They experiment on our bonded ones?" "Yes, and some of those humans. I think some of them might still have the ability to bond. The aliens just don't know it." This was the worst news the Vorthak could have heard. If there were more humans who could bond with dragons, if the dragons could free others of their kind. "Kill them!" General Koth screamed. "Kill them all now." Every weapon on the station turned toward the pit. Laser cannons, plasma rifles, sonic bombs, all of them fired at once. The pit filled with light and heat and noise. Smoke rose like a small volcano. The aliens cheered, sure that nothing could survive such an attack. When the smoke cleared, the pit was empty. "Where are they?" Vextar shouted. His answer came from behind him. "We're right here." Vextar spun around. Deho, Rith, and Nex stood on the arena floor behind the alien crowd. They had phased through the walls like ghosts, then become solid again. The dragons were magnificent now. Their scales shone like metal in starlight. Their eyes burned like suns. Their wings spread wide enough to cast shadows over half the arena. And Deho stood between them, no longer a prisoner. He was something the galaxy had not seen for 1,000 years. A human bonded with dragons, a bridge between species, a guardian of both races. Now, Rith said, his mental voice reaching every mind in the arena. Let us discuss what happens to those who cage families and call it entertainment. Some aliens fainted from fear. Others tried to run but found the exits blocked by dragon wings. General Koth reached for his weapon, but his hand froze when Deho looked at him. You wanted to see dragons, General, Deho said softly. You wanted to see what they could do. Be careful what you wish for. The station's lights flickered as dragon power flowed through the metal walls, and in the hidden parts of the prison, other humans began to wake up. Something was calling to them, something in their blood that had been sleeping for a very long time. The dragons had returned. The bond was restored, and the galaxy was about to remember why humans and dragons together had once been the most feared and respected force among the stars. The arena fell silent except for the sound of alien hearts beating fast with fear. Deho stood between his dragon brothers, golden light flowing from his eyes. Around them, hundreds of Vorthak soldiers pointed weapons that had already failed once. General Koth slowly stood from his command chair. His dark scales seemed to have lost their shine. What do you want? He asked. Every human on this station, Deho replied. Free them all and we leave in peace, and if I refuse? Rith's laugh rumbled through the arena like an earthquake. Then you learn why your ancestors feared the bonded ones. Nex spread his wings wide. The membranes between the wing bones began to glow with silver light. We do not wish to hurt anyone, but we will protect our family. You are outnumbered 1,000 to 1, Commander Vextar said, trying to sound brave. 3 against an entire battle station. Deho smiled sadly. You still don't understand. We are not 3. We are 1, and we are connected to something much larger than this station. He closed his eyes and reached out with his mind. The bond with Rith and Nex had awakened something in him. Something that connected him not just to his dragons, but to every human who had ever lived. Deep in the hidden cells of the station, 43 human prisoners felt something stir in their blood, a warmth they had never felt before, a calling that seemed to come from their very souls. In cell block 7, a human woman named Jihai sat up suddenly. Her brown eyes began to glow with faint golden light. Something's happening, she whispered. In the medical labs, a human man called Minho was strapped to a table. Alien doctors had been running tests on him for months. But now his body was changing, growing stronger. The straps that held him began to crack. In the deep prison levels, more humans were waking up. Young and old, men and women, all feeling the same thing. The bond was calling to them. Their dragon heritage was awakening. Impossible, General Koth breathed as reports came flooding in. The human prisoners are changing. Not changing, Deho said. Remembering. Throughout the station, humans were breaking free from their cells. Not with violence, but with power they had never known they possessed. Some could phase through solid walls like ghosts. Others could heal their own wounds instantly. A few could even speak mind to mind across great distances. The awakening spreads, Rith observed with satisfaction. Once one human remembers, others follow. But they have no dragons to bond with, Vextar said desperately. Nex's eyes gleamed. Who says we are the only dragons here? High above the station, something moved in the darkness of space. Then something else. And another dragons began to appear around the prison station. Not 2 or 3, but dozens. They had been hiding in the space between dimensions, waiting for the call that would tell them their bonded partners had returned. Each dragon was different. Some were blue as deep ocean water. Others were white as snow or red as sunset. They came in all sizes, from small ones no bigger than a house to massive ancient ones that dwarfed the station itself. We never left, they said, as one voice in every awakened human's mind. We have been watching, waiting, hoping. On the station, the freed human prisoners began to make their way toward the arena. They moved through corridors that should have been blocked, past guards who could not see them when they chose to be invisible. Jihi was the first to arrive. She phased through the arena wall like it was made of mist. When she saw Deho standing with the dragons, tears of joy ran down her face. Brother, she said, though they had never met before. The bond made them all family. Sister, Deho replied, his heart full of happiness. More humans arrived. Minho appeared through another wall, his wounds healed, his body strong. Others followed. Young and old, they gathered around Daeho and the dragons, and as each human entered the arena, a dragon outside the station began to glow brighter. The bonds were reforming. The ancient partnerships were being reborn. General Koth watched in horror as his perfect prison fell apart. "This cannot be happening," he whispered. "It already has happened," said a new voice. Everyone turned. Through the main entrance walked an elderly human woman. Her hair was white as starlight, and her eyes held the wisdom of ages. She moved with the grace of someone who had never forgotten what she truly was. "Grandmother Hyejin," Daeho breathed, recognizing her from memories that were not quite his own. "Hello, child," Hyejin said with a warm smile. "I felt the awakening from 3 star systems away." "We came as fast as we could, we?" Vexstar asked. Hyejin gestured toward the walls. Through the metal they could see shapes moving outside. Not just dragons now, but ships. Human ships, sleek and beautiful, designed to work with dragon partners rather than against nature. "The free humans," she explained. "The ones who never forgot. We have been fighting the Vorthak Empire for decades, freeing our people world by world. But we could never break through their strongest prisons. Until today." She looked at Daeho with pride. "You did what we could not do alone. You awakened the deepest bonds. You reminded our dragons who they really are." The arena shook as the human fleet surrounded the station. But these were not weapons of war. They were rescue ships come to take their people home. General Koth fell back into his chair, defeated. His great prison, his source of entertainment, was crumbling around him. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Daeho looked around at his fellow humans, at the magnificent dragons, at the promise of freedom that filled the air like music. "Now we go home," he said. "We rebuild what was broken. We teach our children who they really are. And we make sure that never again will families be separated by fear and cruelty." One by one, the humans and their dragon partners began to phase out of the arena. They moved through space itself, traveling between dimensions to reach the waiting rescue ships. Daeho was the last to leave. He stood with Rith and Nex looking up at the defeated aliens. "You could have been our friends," he said sadly. "You could have learned from us, worked with us, grown with us. Instead, you chose fear. Perhaps one day they will choose differently," Rith said hopefully. "All beings deserve a chance to change," Nex added. Daeho nodded. "If you ever want to learn the true way, General, you know how to find us. The bonded ones welcome all who come in peace." Then he and his dragon brothers faded away like morning mist, leaving the empty arena behind. Outside in space, the human fleet turned toward home. And in their hearts, 45 freed humans carried the greatest treasure in the galaxy, the knowledge that they were never alone and never would be again. The dragons had returned. The bond was restored, and the universe was about to rediscover what it meant when humans and dragons worked together as family.